Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Tonight we're covering Heathers, the 1989 Christian Slater Winona Ryder comedy film that bombed into theaters and has a very dark legacy behind it, which we're going to dive into here too. I think it's a particularly funny film. I'm joined tonight, of course, with RDV, Mr. Pixel, and of course, Eglantine. Eglantine, good evening, sir. How are you?
I am peachy and keen.
So starting with the big E, talking about this movie, going back quite a few years. You and I saw this here in Central Florida at a particularly upscale private theater that only showed independent films, and this was one of the only places, if I recall correctly, that it would even consider showing Heathers due to its extreme graphic content. Why don't you expose on the content and the drama behind this film as it was getting released?
In all honesty, it's really embarrassing to say it was graphic content. It's kind of like how RoboCop had an X rating until you actually saw it, and you're like, big freaking deal. What is it all about? But in this case, the reason why it gained the controversy was because they're supposed to be teenagers. They're supposed to be high schoolers. At one point in time, Christian Slater has a gun in school and gets off with basically a warning. So the idea of, for the entirety of the 80s, it's okay for those teenagers to die violently at summer camps and in their dreams and so forth, but to actually have two people in love decide that the way they're going to deal with things is to kill everyone around them, that was a little bit much. So that kind of soured. But I think this is the kind of movie that's really hard to sell. It's very dark. It does have some violence. It's not like horribly graphic violence, but it's a very dark film, yet it's a comedy at the same time. And I think some people in the beginning didn't know how to approach a movie like this, where, in all honesty, it is the violence that is the comedy. And it's everything. You just have to be able to go in and be able to laugh at the macabre. At one point in time, he plants. They get these two cops. They shoot these two cops, and then they decide to make it look like a suicide. And he's planting some stuff on it to make them look gay. And one thing he put is a sparkling water,
mineral water.
Yeah, well, yeah. So he goes, well, if anything less than a brewski in this town. And sure enough, the cops come up and they go, oh, no. And they pick up the water, So even though this particular whole setup began with two people needing to die, that's the kind of stuff you laugh at. And I think that was a harder sell back then than it is today. Today, we've seen this kind of dark style comedy a lot, including Shaun of the Dead and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think like I say, the things that have happened since then is why I don't think this will be made today. So I'm going to agree with you on go on the opposite spectrum of that. But let's go around the horn for our initial reviews and thoughts about it. RDV, let's go with you here. I know you're a big Christian Slater fan, as am I. What was your take on this film?
When I first saw it, I was like, wow, this is a comedy. Like, it's really dark, as opposed to like what John Hughes was doing with all his Rat Pack stuff. This is like the completely opposite. Of course, it was in the later 90s. I'm not sure how long John Hughes' Rat Pack stuff went past the 80s.
It kind of died out around this time.
Yeah. But Christian Slater, after just watching Gleam of the Cube and all that stuff, and then coming to watch this, is like, he is a freaking psychopath. He's manipulating her and everything, taking advantage of her. And I just love the whole. I just still today the Drano scene. I'll never forget that. That is one thing that always stand out. I was just thinking, like, wow. And then just the cast you have Shannon Doherty in here too as well. It's like,
yes, you do.
Kim Walker is E is pointed out behind stage. The beautiful Kim Walker. Sadly, she died in 2001.
What a waste.
Yeah. I say that Winona Ryder, this is the first I came across her other than Beetlejuice.
Really?
Yeah.
She was in Stranger Things.
No, I'm saying before, back in the day.
Oh, as a teenager.
As a teenager, yes, yeah, and he's got the Christian Slater with the giant gun. He's got the giant, dirty hairy gun.
Yeah.
It was like I said, it was a dark comedy, I can understand why people were uncomfortable about it because, and especially now today, it has been made into a musical and a TV television series. So it's still being made, but they're heavily modifying it. Bet you they're not going to have it, like it is here.
Yeah, and I think they totally missed some of the adult themes that are in it that we'll talk about here in a moment. But before we dive into, we need to go around the horn and finish up with Mr. Pixel himself. They're a big fun guy. What's your initial take on this movie? Had you ever seen it before? You're the young 20-something millennial. What's your initial take?
No, this is my first watch. My first time watching it. And I didn't hate it.
Yeah, you did.
It's just whenever it was starting, and it does get better. I will say that with what exactly it is, a black comedy, it does get better. But when it's starting out, you're just, I was ready to stop 15 minutes in. But then once he pulled out the gun and fired the blanks at the two jocks, my interest was piqued a little bit. And overall, I did enjoy many moments of this movie, but I can't say that I would ever watch it again.
Well, RDV brought up something that I wanted to start just talking about some of the themes were, because this is the way, upon rewatching it today, I noticed, is that you start off with the Heathers all calling each other Heather, and they're playing croquet in the yard, and they're all rich kids, whatever, but they all have a solid color. Like one, I think, is green, yellow, and red, right? And of course, those mean things. Red is power, yellow means docile, green means envy, and that's what their natures are. So there's a little color scheme that goes on in this film. Yeah. What I liked about this film too is I look at it as a totally different thing. I don't look at it as a anti-John Hughes film. I don't look at it as we're looking at class status, the rich kids and all the things that are going wrong. I look at it as Winona Ryder's character is the least assertive person out of all of them, because she's that tweener. She's the one that is kind of friends with them, kind of wants to be in, but she likes the normal ones. So she learns how to grow up and become an adult by going through all these crazy things that she gets involved with. And I look at Christian Slater, he's just one-dimensional. He's like, the bad side, and she's conflicted and draws her into more and more absurd things too. But what's amazing about this film is that in her way of the way the film finishes, it's funny because she not only has to go through all this stuff, she has to take action. She's trying to be a wallflower and not hurt anybody and not do stuff. And at least as despicable as all these other groups are, the jocks to beat up on some of the people that were actually doing the yearbook, I thought were kind of funny. The calorically challenged individuals arc, all of them at least were who they were. Winona Ryder's character wasn't anybody, so she had to learn the hard way through a lot of implied violence and incredible situations that you can want what you want, but you got to take action for it. And when you do it, actions have consequences, and they may not be exactly what you think. Hence the great ending to it. But for me, watching this occur, it just was so obvious from the beginning, this is what they were going for. And that's why I liked it early on. And I think a lot of people just go on and talk about, oh my God, they show girls puking. They show, puking up their lunch. They show girls going to college parties when they're not really having fun. They're just doing it for status, and all those high school things that do happen. It's, to me, like, not ashamed to sit there and say, yeah, this is what happens. We're going to be so absurd about it to show this character, Winona Ryder, having to basically grow up into an adult world. It's very cynical, and it is the complete opposite of John Hughes, and that's why it works.
To me, I know you've probably seen Mean Girls. I mean, you watch a lot of movies. I'm not sure if anybody else has.
Yeah, I saw Mean Girls.
Mean Girls felt like it was taking cues from this and then changing it, making it more not as dark, but obviously, this movie has inspired other movies like that. I imagine. I'm sure there's other ones out there, but yeah, this movie, like I said, how dark it was, but it was still a comedy. And you said, like, I was a Pixar. When I originally remember watching as a kid, I was like, what is this? And then I saw Christian Slater with the gun. I was like, dude, I'm gonna like this. I'm doing this.
I wasn't sure. I thought you might have hated it. It's hard to say, because this really pushes the buttons of a lot of people.
It's a dark satire, though. But the thing is that you gotta take it in jest. It's not real. It's not, This is before all the school shootings and all that stuff, so nobody ever had the idea like, oh, someone's gonna bring the gun to school and all that stuff. We can't have this. This, yeah. Everybody thought this would never happen because Hollywood's fake. So why would they do anything that's real? Like I said, Christian Slater bringing the star power to this. Winona Ryder was perfect for the role. I heard they wanted to get Jennifer Connelly originally, and I think there was someone else they also wanted.
Heather Graham, maybe. Who was getting ready to star in Twin
Justine
Peaks
Bateman. Justine Bateman was the other choice originally, and I was like, now look at those two. No, Winona Ryder sells it. Without Winona Ryder, you wouldn't have got it done as well. Because look at how she acted in Beetlejuice. She was perfect for that role too.
Winona Ryder went on to show people that she had the chops. I've never seen that from Justine Bateman in the one or two movies I've seen her in. As far as this film goes, I like what you said about the colors and such. At the time, of course, Christian Slater was being hailed as the next Jack Nicholson for the way he was talking through the movie, which he didn't really lean into through. If you ever watch a movie called Invincible, and I highly recommend you do with Helen Slater, he actually does not talk like that. So this was a choice that he made literally for this movie. He even loses it a bit in future films. He still has the way he talks, the high pitch, nasally thing. There were some elements of violence, and we did have some things happen in schools, but nothing like what ended up coming out. I remember there was even a book by Stephen King under the title of Richard Bachman that dealt with high school shootings and everything. But that was just a little piece of it. The gun and everything was just a touch of what's going on in Heather's as they start to go about their business of dealing with their friends and such. And you nailed it a little bit there when you mentioned this is basically Winona Ryder growing up. This is her finding a boy, not a man. Christian Slater is not a man in this. He's a boy. And he's got a very childish way of dealing with things and looking at things, lash out, kill what you don't understand rather than deal with it and so forth. And I think that is also something that young girls do, that you always hear about how they go for the bad guy. They go for the tough guy. Basically what it is they go for the person that would provide security. They don't have to worry about financial. So if you go for the tough guy, or at least the guy who can, that could give them that sense of security, then they're going to go with it. And Christian Slater in this, at a certain point, proved that he could provide this. He stood up to the big bullies, but at a certain point, she found out, no, this guy is actually a nut bar and he goes too far. One of the greatest lines, by the way, is when she realizes that, yes, she's in over her head. She's not dealing with things as an adult. She wants to move on. She's got to get rid of Christian Slater, dump the boyfriend, basically. One of the greatest lines in movie history is, "My teenage angst now has a body count." I love that freaking line.
It is a quotable film. Go ahead, Pixel. I was going to ask you. It seemed like out of the three of us, you liked this the least, and so I wanted to kind of dive into that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Winona Ryder, whenever her character in this, while I do believe she even her boyfriend points out, like, you were not really that gullible whenever he talked about the German bullets that make it look like somebody's dead, but they're okay.
They'll buy it.
But she's not really. She's pulled along into the kills. She's not leading the killing, except to kill her boyfriend. Because you every time you said it, Englentine, it sounded like you were saying they decide we should kill our friends, which is not how it happens.
Well, yeah, it is. It is. I'm sorry, but after the first one, if you're not calling the cops, you're in on it.
I didn't say she's not in on it. I was saying that the killing, that the arrangement of every plan. So yeah, she's definitely involved. And if I remember correctly, she wrote the suicide notes. Yes, because her handwriting.
But that's also something. If you really do watch this film, like I said, Robert kind of he ended up really nailing this. This is basically about a girl growing up. It's an extreme version of it, but it is. And you do have young ladies finding themselves in the situation where things go a little bit too far, and in some cases they don't want to take responsibility. Guys do this too, but they don't want to take responsibility. She didn't want to take responsibility. Therefore, I mean, even in the line I said, my teenage angst now has a body count. Not her. It wasn't because of any decision. It wasn't anything. It was her emotional state that caused these things to happen. But she never had to write the suicide note. She never had to do anything but go home, say, oh my God, this guy just killed someone in front of me. I need to call the police. But she didn't, because there's a certain amount of excitement that comes along with being with the bad guy, with being with the bad boy, and so forth and so on, that she liked. The getting away from her perfect and pristine friends was attractive enough for her to be led astray. So yeah, I do hold Winona Ryder's character accountable. Now, I don't know if this is what the writer originally meant, but I do hold her character accountable.
I agree with that. I agree. She's definitely held accountable for not calling it in, for writing the suicide notes. Yes, but she isn't the mastermind behind all this.
She is, because she allows it to happen, and she's the one that is sitting behind that and basically agreeing with it. So to me, she knows what she wants. She wants to be a part of that Heather's group. She wants it so bad she's willing to go to, what was it? I forget the name of that college party.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about the film is that everybody is so one-dimensional. It's very easy to see how they are. Like Christian Slater's father is a complete jerk and he's psychotic, and that's where Christian gets it from, right? He's not the 80s dweeb father that's absent, because single mom itis hadn't completely taken over yet in film. But also when they're at the college party, she's there with one of the Heather girls. The guy just basically, but I think it was the yellow one. He's like, hey, I just want to make love, basically. I just want to get down. And so instead of actually making, getting down, she has oral sex with them, and of course it's really implied or anything, because she spits when she gets out later. And there's plenty of the girls that will fool around and do stuff but not go all the way, but she just has to have something happen at the party. That way she has that, I was at the party and we hooked up with some of the college guys, because that gives her the status. And Winona's character is already at this point freeloading off that, because she wants to go there, drink, not do anything, not talk to anybody. So she wants it all without paying a price for it. So it's very cynical in that regard too, because this isn't what I would call a feminist film. It's the film that whether you're man or woman, your actions have consequences, and she's learning the hard way that, as absurd as it gets, she is involved, and she definitely is, I think, the ringleader of all, because she's the one that has to have this action. It's shit or get off the pot. And now she's shitting, and she's realized, oh my God, I actually have to get out of my life and do something for things to happen. And it doesn't go the way I want it to too. I don't know, at least that's like I say, it seemed it was pretty obvious that's how it was with it, but there's got to be some different takes on here too. Now, RDV, you and I were talking a little bit about Christian Slater and how much we like him. Do you see the Christian Slater in this film? You'd mentioned another film that he was in that you liked him in too. Do you think this was a great performance by him, or what's your feeling on Christian?
I like pretty much what he does. I'm probably biased. I mean, I liked him in his field TV shows too. Breaking In. I mean, it's just
Breaking In's brilliant.
I know
that deserved more love than it got.
Christian, like I said, Christian Slater is good no matter what he puts into it. And I'll just say it. It's the same thing. You look at these other actors. You look at Nicolas Cage. People love to hate on him. People love to watch his movies too. I think that he's done well. He's channeling the same energy as you saw him in Pump Up the Volume, or True Romance was another one with violence. This he was a little darker, yes. And I guess I think he was a perfect cast. I mean, I was reading up and on the casting decisions, auditions. Brad Pitt auditioned for the role first for JD.
Exactly.
They turned him down because they said he was too nice. Christian Slater came in and auditioned it, and he thought he didn't get the role, so he threw a temper tantrum, threw the script in the trash, then left. With profanity and stuff. They went on later and saying that's one of the key factors why they decided to hire him on because, well, this guy is already a drama queen. He fits the crazy lunatic role, so they got him in there, and then they got his girlfriend at the time was Kim Walker was dating him. That's why she was offered the role of being one of the Heathers. So yeah, it's funny how many people came close to being in movies that probably would have ruined the movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's scary. But Christian Slater's always been that crazy guy. So he fits that role. He does the Jack Nicholson thing. Doesn't really bother me. Because it just makes him look more creepy. Like look at the cover behind you. Look at him. He always has that face, no matter what movie he's doing. He just that guy. He's thinking of something. He can get away with it if he That is.
There was a film in the late '90s which we've talked about doing on here called Very Bad Things, which is a comedy as well, where Christian Slater is like a real estate agent. Him and his buddies are having a bachelor party, and they accidentally kill the stripper that they've hired. And it's absurd and weird stuff happens.
Very bad things.
And ever since then, I've been like, wow, Christian Slater's still kind of the same guy, and that's not a bad thing. And you kind of get Christian Slater as Christian Slater in all these movies that I'll go back to here. But what I wanted to kind of close off and just have you guys just talk a little bit about is this. Heathers pretty much bombed when it came out. People didn't know how to take it because they were force-fed all this E.T. nice guy crap in the 80s, and then there was just a few dark films or other films like this, even though this is a comedy in the 80s. So everyone was kind of desensitized to what really goes on in high school. And in a little bit of a way, this movie captured that. Not nearly as good as Fast Times at Ridgemont High, let's say. But the thing about this movie is everyone uses this as the gold standard of what you shouldn't do. And E, I'll start with you before we go around as far as having you guys talk about this, because E, you and I were big into rock music, obviously, growing up in musical families. Wearing trench coats was not a new thing. It'd been around for quite some time, but everyone likes to pick on this movie and say, well, here's a little white dude wearing a trench coat, and he somehow set the standard for all the bad things that would happen in real life after this, which we don't need to get into. But why do you think this movie garnered such a bad reputation? It can't just be that, can it?
Okay. If you watch this, you can, and especially take it as a parent. This is kind of a pretentious piece of crap that really is talking to the kids in the wrong way. Look, I enjoy this. I've got a bit of nostalgia because I watched it as a young person, but when I do watch it as an older person, Christian Slater, Winona Ryder, they're full of crap because they don't know anything. The writing is based on or written as the teenagers. They don't know anything, but they think they do, and they're going through this. So as adults, you look at it and you can see it. One, yeah, it's pretentious. They're trying to do a little bit more than what they can. And two, it really is sending a wrong message, but it does have that line, "I love my dead gay son," which is absolutely freaking brilliant. This movie has some great freaking lines, and I wish for the ball sack to put on a T-shirt. "I love my dead gay son," just to see how many people recognize it. But and I think that's one of the reasons why. But the thing is those of us who liked it when we went and saw it loved it when we went and saw it, and we are the ones that kind of helped it grow. And when it came to getting back onto home video, when it came to DVD and so forth and so on, it took off. This was a movie that did not work in the mainstream, but when you can get it home, when people are basically with their own movie libraries that for some reason have Last Tango in Paris, Heathers, and the freaking Goonies. Yes, I've had that all three on my shelf at one point in time. You're okay with watching things that maybe you wouldn't say in the first place, but I can see it both ways. I've actually experienced the whole watching Ferris Bueller through the eyes of a parent as well. And there are certain 80s movies that don't hold up when you look at it in that kind of spectrum.
Well, it seemed like the teenagers definitely got this film and were not offended by it or negatively influenced, where some parents feigned their initial shock, and all that. So just kind of ridiculous there too. What do you guys think?
I definitely think this movie isn't harmful, but I'm sure there are parents out there looking at these movies, and it's just saying, do you know your kid? Do you trust your kid? That comes down to movies. I will say that. If you don't trust your kid to watch movies, you don't really trust your kid, and that's something you need to figure out yourself. But trying to ban a movie because you don't like it because it might cause something, that's dumb. Movies are meant to be watched, meant to be entertained. If you're not entertained, then it's not made for you. There's tons of movies. That's what you say, like about manga, comics. There's everything for anybody. Just because you don't get it doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah, but we're dealing with a different time here. We are not now living in a time where
common sense is out the window.
Yeah. This is not go ahead.
I realized something. I think Rob said it earlier, or maybe it was Bangman, that this movie couldn't be made today, which I'm just now realizing that is so wrong. So wrong. Because because
with the school shootings and everything.
It was released actually went in theaters in 2018.
Even with the gun being pulled out. Why? Because for one, it's been made into a musical. They're making a show. You can say it's worse than. There was a show called Scream Queens, which is about college life instead of high school. But it's the same dang thing. You have terrible, terrible people in these popular positions. There's some death going on all around, and they're making light of it. And even with staged suicides. And so it absolutely could be made today. I just realized that was just one point that I had to talk about.
Yeah, it was released in theaters back 2018. It's became released on DVD and steel case and all formats throughout the years. Musical was in 2011, I believe, or 2010. So it's still popular. Despite what people today. Now again, that was 2018, 2019. We're now in 2021. Going to go into 2022. Times change, Things we thought.
Come on, they didn't change that much. Where this show, where this.
Well, no. I know, but I'm just saying, within the cancer culture, you can't apply logic.
I'll tell you what. There's things that you could say 3 years ago that people would jump all over you now. Thankfully, we are a breed that doesn't give a crap. But there are some people who would worry about that kind of thing.
Well, like I said, they're making a Heather's TV series that's supposed to be coming out.
Hopefully that it has the same dark humor.
Yeah,
they had a show not 2 to 3 years ago that has that same vibe. It's more of a Scream vibe.
It was a serial killer. It was also very liberal. Heather's is not, or at least I didn't see it that way. I just don't. I don't see this movie.
I don't see.
And also, Scream Queens did not take place in a high school.
Yeah, I said that. I said it was in a college campus.
Yeah. Well, this is, and I think you would have a harder time making this movie than you do Scream Queens.
Any shootings in high schools right now? I don't. Yeah, I wouldn't think you'd ever see a movie or television about people being shot.
And definitely not as a comedy.
Yes.
I just don't see that. I mean, you might be right. You might be right. But the reason why there's a musical isn't because it was made today. The reason why there's a musical is because it was made 30 years ago, and now it has this nostalgia to it that people have, actually the whole thing, they've done the YouTube videos going through discussing the psychology of JD and so forth and so on. So it's been broken down, and the familiarity has not so much bred contempt as it has diluted the violence. It's diluted the activities of two high schoolers, and that does happen sometimes. There are some movies that have it starts off one way, but because people see it over and over and over again, they forget that it might be rated R, it might have violence, it might have language, it might have some sex in it, because it's just part of the the lexicon. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is a family film, yet there's a 5-minute segment where Steve Martin says nothing but the F word. I want an effing car, right? Effing that, you know.
Doc Hollywood.
And people forget about
Full
it. Yeah,
frontal
Doc
nudity.
Hollywood has full frontal nudity
Rated G.
almost 15 or 20 minutes into it. Yeah, and God bless Ford. Holy crap, that woman's hot. And yeah, people, if a movie sits around, it's part of the lexicon. People forget exactly what's in it because they've become desensitized to it. Heathers can be done as a musical now. It can be done as a TV show now because it was done 30 years ago. It would not be a new property without Heathers existing on TV right now. And that when somebody says it couldn't be made today, that's what they mean. And I'm sorry, but they would not make a comedy where the movie opens with a guy pulling out a gun in school right now. Also, there were scenes like the college scene would be done differently because of the Me Too movement, with a girl feeling obligated to give a blowjob. The fact that girls,
I don't think she felt obligated. I think she did it just to control him, not obligated.
Well,
Heather's got to control everything. They were the alphas in the school.
Yeah, but they weren't in their school. See, they were the big dogs in the high school. They went to a college party.
No, the disturbing scene was when they go to do the second setup, and she goes to meet the college guys or whatever at night, and their comment is made, well, I hope that they don't take us out, cow tipping, and it's at night, and the guys are tipping the cows, the girls are watching. And she goes to leave, and Christian says, let me take you for a snow cone or whatever. And you see the other girl on the ground with the guy on top of her in the background while they're talking, and he's being very forcible with her. That would have some outrage, I think.
But there's more to it. Even in the college scene, what that was is it was showing very much it's a male-dominated world, and that wouldn't happen either, because these top dogs of high school are now basically submissive, at least the main ones, not goodness gracious, main girls, her Winona Ryder, not her character. This would not be shown today. This would not be a new property today, is what I'm saying. So there you go. There's just too much in it.
All right, any other final thoughts, guys, around the room here? Anything about the film that strikes you that really stood out that you want to mention before we go?
Well, it ended with a bang.
It's very Looney Tunes-ish.
I gotta tell you, now that you made me think of the ending, I gotta tell you, of all the stuff that happens in here, of all the killings, the death, the young lady crying in the bathroom, the whole thing, the one thing that makes me feel bad for any character more than anyone else is Martha Dump Truck sitting on the bleachers eating an ice cream, and it just falls over her, and she looks like her world melts. And I think anybody's been there when they're feeling down and they just want this nice ice cream. This is the bright spot of the day of a crappy day, or in her case, she was feeling it was a crappy life. And then it falls apart. It's like, really, God, this is what you're doing to me now. That of all the scenes that really affected me, it was the Martha Dump Truck on the bleachers with the ice cream. It is
overweight, frumpy teenage girl that gets made fun of, and she of course goes to take matters in her own hands. I'll just say that. And that's why I think people responded so highly to Barb in Stranger Things, because again, overweight, frumpy one, just the modern version of it. And you had the whole justice for Barb thing, and Barb was a good friend. And it resonated with a lot of people despite her appearances and all that. So I think you could still make this movie today and still make it a comedy. I definitely think you could, because people respond to what's real, and I say real. Justice for Barb and Martha Dump Truck. There you go. Let her get her ice cream. Yes, let her get her ice cream. Any final thoughts?
I've said pretty much everything. I enjoyed some of the scenes, but overall, I really didn't care.
What was the scene you hated the most? What was your worst scene that you saw?
Yeah, give it to us. Why did you really hate it?
I just hate the people, which we're supposed to. I get that.
Yeah, these are not likable characters.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Except for Martha Dump Truck.
Well, I mean, no. There's also Veronica's friend, who she abandoned to be with the Heathers. She was likable.
Yeah.
But I even though we're seeing these people die off left and right, there's only 4 deaths in the movie, though. Thinking about the body count now, which isn't that much, but it's still not enough. I feel these were horrible people, and then it just breeds a new horrible one, which is a part of the point of the movie. I just feel like watching this kind of movie is like a punishment for myself.
Well, I'll agree with you, and we'll close with that, in that it is hard to be emotionally invested into all of them. And if you look at it from that point of view, it does make this film, like everybody's commented here in chat, Jim, Ed, everybody, about how basically it's a one-time watch, because you don't like the characters, you don't want to see what happens to them. You just understand it's a comedy. They're one-dimensional. There's nothing to them other than how they're presented, and that's it. So I can understand that, certainly, and that's what unfortunately I think makes slapstick and lighthearted stuff for the most part unwatchable. So it's rare that you can put them together and say something cynical a little bit like this in a comedy sort of ways without being completely dark or serious about it. And yeah, if you don't like this film in the first few minutes, you probably just won't like watching the entire thing. So I think that's a very valid point. It's hard to like her. She's not a likable person. She wants it all, and she doesn't want to pay the price for it. She's a child, and great, she becomes an adult allegedly by the end of the film through the death of a bunch of the other people. But are we supposed to celebrate that? I don't know. And you're right. I think that is the film. So
now, I think it would have been funny if they would have done a cheesy sequel, though. I'll just say with original cast, you can have Winona Ryder in there, but she's older after the events, but she's kind of losing herself for Sandy, ripping Sandy, and she sees Christian Slater's dead body, or his body as a ghost haunting her, having her go around kill people.
That's Wonder Woman 1984. No, we don't need that again. We don't need that. No, in all honesty. So I'm sorry. Go on ahead, Rob.
No, I was just closing out. Finish your thought.
Okay, I was going to say the whole point of the ending is that, yes, Shannon Doherty's character becomes the new Veronica, and that shows that the wheel is always turning. You'll always have in high school the people who are cooler, the people who look down on the regular guys. But the thing is, as I said, this movie was really about a young woman growing into an adult. So what she did was she walks up to, she said, there's a new sheriff in town. She took her own power by, of course, taking the bow and going on. Shannon Doherty's going to be the new Heather, but she's learned that the mean girls of high school don't matter, and it's time to move on. And so going back, I'm glad they didn't make a sequel. That's where it ended.
That was when a writer joking in 2009. That was everything, having him come back as an Obi-Wan character.
Okay.
Oh, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Heather's 1989, Christian Slater, Winona Ryder. I'd like to thank E, Pixel, and RDV for showing up tonight discussing, as well as everybody here in chat too. It's definitely an 80s type film. It's definitely extreme. If you're triggered easily and things you find you being very sensitive to when it comes to high school stuff, this is not the film for you. But if you go in there just thinking of it in very silly, basic, flat binary terms, it might be enjoyable. Definitely different than what's out there produced today. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a good night. Check us out on Twin Peaks. We're going to be dropping the next episode here real soon, episode 21. We're finishing up season 2 in our review there too. We've got an action film coming up live on Tuesday night. You got anything coming up you need to plug?
Tomorrow's we've got issues where we'll probably just kind of rip on what's going on in the comic book industry, and just keep an eye out on Old Man Comics for videos every day. So,
Pixel, you got anything going on you need to plug?
Well, I have a friend who's a puppet, and he's a puppet version of the guy right next to me.
Kermit?
No, not Kermit. I don't think Eglantine's a frog. But the channel's I Love Puppets. They do comic book readings, and they do reviews of the CW superhero shows. So if you don't like those, but you want to know what's going on, you can check those out. Even if you like them, go ahead and give them a view.
There you go, guys. Old Man Comics, I Love Comics, and I love puppets. There you go. I love. It's such a positive atmosphere we have here at the Xtreme Movie Show. Thanks, guys, for listening. Have a good night, and as always, stay extreme.
I love my dead gay son.
Don't get me banned.